Okay, so Joule is winning matches at the highest level of competitive. Fortress is being picked and banned almost every match. Grumpjaw is being banned on occasion. Flicker is being banned and picked. Rhyme is actually being played for once. Adagio and Lyra are actually making it through draft occasionally. Something big is happening to the meta, and at first I had no idea what it is. So it's a lot bigger, the changes that are going on in the meta right now that we're going to talk about today. But today we are going to be talking about the biggest change in the meta, and that is Joule and all that she brings with her into the meta. So, as you probably know from the title of the video, we are going to be looking at Joule coming back into the meta and everything that entails. We're going to be looking at the games between Cloud9 and TSM, and then we're going to be going to a place that I never thought that I was going to have to go to on this series, and that is the EU server. That's right, we are going to be breaking down the game between Fnatic and Team Secret on day 1 of the Vainglory 8 EU. That's going to be after we do the TSM versus Cloud9. The prevailing factor between both games is that they both have a Joule, and the Joule wins both times. So, there's a lot to digest in this video. I hope you guys all learned something useful. Let's put our detective caps on and find out why Joule is back in the meta. So, a reason why Joule was discarded from the meta back in patch 1.6 was because they reduced the area of her rocket leap that would give a stun. Before that, she was a humongous, let's pile damage onto a single target hero, and that's what we're seeing right here again. So when they nerfed Joule in patch 1.6, basically everybody was like, well, her rocket leap is harder to land now, not going to be able to get that consistent follow-up like we could before. It's going to be a little bit harder. But now pros seem to have picked that right back up. You see here as Best Chuck jumps straight onto Old School. Of course, the stun is blocked, but the follow-up is there. The TSM lineup has Koshka, Joule, and Lyra, which means the Koshka is going to get immense damage onto anybody that the Joule stuns. So, look at how much damage Old School has taken right there. You can see the part of his health bar that has been flashed red. And TSM is going to take down Old School here, and it just goes to show you the power of stunning somebody with Joule and having a follow-up hero like Koshka go onto the target. So here we're going to see TSM going for the gold mine, and it's actually going to be stolen by I Love Joseph playing the Rhyme. So what's going to happen here though is you're going to see the stun come out from Best Chuck, and the whole of Cloud9 is going to go down for one reason. They let Best Chuck NA stack his breaking point on the Joule. Now, personally, I actually don't build Joule with a breaking point. I build her with, Sorrow Blade, 2 Tyrant's Monocles, and a Tornado Trigger. But that's just me. I'm not a pro player. So what happened here was you saw that the Rhyme was getting good damage onto the Joule. And that's usually a great thing. But I Love Joseph was not able to kill the Joule. And that worked to kill TSM, because the thing is, Best Chuck NA was front-facing towards the Rhyme that entire fight. Joule has extra armor and shield when she's facing you from the front. So that allowed Best Chuck to easily sustain through the fight, stack his breaking point, and just light up Cloud9 with Thunder Strikes. So it's just cleanup for TSM from here, and Best Chuck is just playing Joule to the best degree that you can possibly play Joule. Into a Rhyme. Rhyme is a hard matchup for Joule. But through front-facing and good healing and support from his team, he's able to stack his breaking point and win the fight. So here, TSM is rotating down into Cloud9's jungle, and the Crystal Sentry is there. So Cloud9, rightly so, thinks that it's probably a good time to fight since the Crystal Sentry is there. Wait for It is a complete whiff from Old School. And let's see right here, we're going to look at one of the more overlooked aspects of Joule. Her ability to create separation in the opposing team through not landing her rocket leap. If she doesn't land her rocket leap, everybody else around her is pushed back and takes a little bit of damage and is pushed away. You see, I Love Joseph on the Rhyme is pushed towards the rest of TSM, and this just completely discombobulates the whole comp of Cloud9. Their team comp is designed for I love Joseph to cripple the Joule, keep him rooted while Old School builds breaking point stacks. But by pushing the Rhyme towards the rest of the team, I love Joseph is just totally out of position, and we're going to see the Joule and the Koshka just get free reign over the carries and supports of Cloud9 here as it unpauses. The Crystal Sentry is going to go down in all this chaos, and Gabe Bizzle is actually going to punt the wrong person, resulting in Vox's death by Koshka. So, what we saw here is that I Love Joseph was not able to set that fight up correctly for Old School because the Joule pushed him away with the missed Rocket Leap. It's almost like he missed that Rocket Leap on purpose. Valkyrie is going to come in, and the team is just completely split up. Old School dies a horrible death to the Koshka, and now they're all able to collapse onto the Rhyme as 3. And you're seeing Best Chuck do a little bit of a runaway strat with Joule. That's actually something you have to do sometimes when you're playing Joule, is you just run away for your next Thunderstrike to come up and avoid some damage. So it's just total cleanup from TSM, perfectly executed fight from the combo of the Joule and Koshka. So TSM is taking this Kraken here, and Cloud9 is going to come in and try to contest. But what we're going to see yet again is Best Chuck and A rocket leaping in to create separation in the ranks of Cloud9. I Love Joseph is once again knocked away from Old School, while Old School has the Koshka on him. Lyra is just kind of in the backline doing what Lyra does, and yet again, it's a great situation for TSM, because Best Chuck and A has used Rocket Leap to create separation between the two carries of Cloud9. This whole comp relies on Rhyme slowing down the carries and Vox getting free breaking point stacks off of them. So when you separate the Rhyme and the Vox, Von C on the Koshka is free to do whatever he pleases to Old School on the Vox. So you're going to see here now that Best Chuck and A he's in a not so great spot, but he's going to be able to reposition very easily due to the support from the Lyra, and they're going to be able to take down Old School quickly. So Old School is actually, I think, going to block the Yummy Catnip Frenzy eventually, but we're going to get to that in the next fight. So we're going to get to the Reflex Block problem in the next fight, but we're just going to see TSM cleaning up once again. Best Chuck repositions, is going to get on to Old School, do a lot of damage, and it's just breaking point Joule stacks from there. So this is actually the last fight of this game, and I want to highlight not so much that TSM wins the fight, but I want to highlight Old School. So Flash X lands a perfect portal into Atlas Pauldron onto both carries of Cloud9, and Von C automatically jumps straight onto the Vox. And he also, keep in mind, Von C has just gotten his ultimate blocked, but keep in mind, Von C has his own Atlas Pauldron. Old School has already Atlas Pauldron. Old School just used his Reflex Block. There is so much CC and attack slows coming through from TSM. Old School only has one Reflex Block. There's literally nothing he can do against the two-pronged attack of TSM here. Now that's a concept we're going to get to later, but we're going to see it unpause here as Von C once again is just destroying Old School, making short work of him, and just so much CC coming through from TSM. Multiple Atlas Pauldrons, Old School can't block them all. So as we see TSM about to win this game here, what really stood out to me was the use of the two-pronged attack, the burst from the Koshka and the burst from the Joule, and the support from the Lyra as well, and the ability to create separation between the Rhyme and the Vox to completely shut down what Cloud9 was trying to do with their comp. So let's review something a little bit here on this slide that I've made. When the Joule has been picked in the Vainglory 8, there is always a Lyra with her. If there hasn't been a Lyra in any game that Joule has played, please tell me in the comments. Every Joule game I saw had Lyra with her. The jungler had burst potential. Now, Koshka, of course, burst potential. Joule is played with a weapon power breaking point build, and we're going to talk more about the jungler with burst potential and the two-pronged attack later in the video when we travel to EU, when we go across the pond to EU, talk about Fnatic versus Team Secret. But I digress. Before and by before, I mean like 2 weeks ago and a little bit less. The pro team comps have been centered around largely a singular weapon power carry supported by a crystal glaive and a regular roamer. And the goal of those comps was to keep repositioning the other team for the weapon power carry to build breaking point stacks. So now, what we're seeing here is teams coming out with 2-pronged attacks, 2 heroes that have insane burst, 1 weapon, 1 crystal, and that's where Joule shines. If she jumps in, has big burst potential, lands a stun with Rocket Leap, your jungler with huge burst potential can also jump onto the other target that Joule has stunned, and it's just an instant kill. Whereas before, it would be like your Crystal Glaive posturing around, looking for that afterburn to peel for the weapon power Ringo. And the fights just would take forever because you just gotta wait for your weapon power carry to get breaking point stacks. You gotta wait for them to miss their afterburn or whatever. So the fights are taking very, very much shorter time than they did before. And it's because of this shift from the singular carry mindset to the 2-pronged attack mindset. And that is what Joule rides on the back of here. So this draft between Fnatic and Team Secret really can yield a lot about what's going to happen in the game. So obviously we're going to see Joule and Lyra on the side of Fnatic, and you're going to see the Rhyme on the side of Team Secret. But you're also going to see a Baron instead of a Vox compared to last game, and a Kestrel compared to a Kashka compared to last game. The Adagio doesn't really matter so much, but what really matters to me is the pick of Kestrel over the Kashka-oriented build that we saw last time from TSM. So the Kestrel is an entirely different thing than the Kashka. Even though they're both going to be yielding crystal power, what this means is that they are going to be focusing a lot more, they're going to be putting more eggs into the basket of Techno JJ on the Joule and his frontline power. His face-to-face fighting against Team Secret is going to be more under pressure, but Palmatoro is going to be safe on the backline, pounding glimmer shots with splash damage into the opposing team as they try to pile onto Techno JJ's Joule. Now, the Lyra, of course, is going to be in the backline, giving Joule an Imperial Sigil when she leaps in. And the composition for the other team, Team Secret, is going to be doing effectively the same thing that Cloud9's did last time. Cloud9's comp last time had the Rhyme, but they had a Vox instead of a Baron. Now, of course, this is still your weapon power carry trying to build breaking point stacks, but it's going to be a little bit tougher to create separation between the Rhyme and the Baron than it was between the Rhyme and the Vox. This is because if Baron gets to late game, his jump jets are up very often, and that's a big burst of weapon power damage, especially if he can land his breaking point stacks. So, there's a lot of different things, but there's a lot of same things. The focus is going to be on Palmatoro, and if he's able to follow up, hit his one-shot, one kills, and if Netoilette is able to keep Techno JJ alive when he jumps in with the Joule. Now, with this comp from Fnatic, compared to the comp from TSM, there's going to be a lot more pressure on Techno JJ to not die, because he's not going to have another melee threat up in the face of Team Secret with him. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there's just so much stuff different on the side of Fnatic than there was on TSM, but Team Secret's comp compared to Cloud9's comp in the last game is pretty much the same. So let's see how Fnatic does it compared to how TSM did it last time. So as a fight in the lane is going to break out between the two teams, I want to draw your attention to Palmatoro. Techno JJ is going to miss Rocket Leap, but look at Palmatoro right now, and look at how grouped up Team Secret is. The Fountain has just been forced out of Mowgli. That is Mowgli, right? No, Mowgli doesn't play anymore. He's a coach now. That's Just Man. So the Fountain has been forced out of Just Man, and look at where Team Secret is and where Palmatoro is. I want to draw your attention to Palmatoro, because this is just like perfect for a Crystal Power Kestrel like what Palmatoro is playing. So Palmatoro is going to be able to land great glimmer shots onto the side of Team Secret, and you might say, well, Techno JJ is kind of low, but Netoilette has held on to his Fountain long enough that it's just a great fight for Fnatic. They did not successfully kill the Joule. They did not successfully dive onto Palmatoro, partly because they don't really have the resources to dive a CP Kestrel with the comp they've chosen. So Palmatoro is going to hit great Glimmer shots, and it is going to set up Techno JJ for a great big red button and a first blood for Fnatic. So that was a really well executed fight, mostly because Techno JJ didn't die on the front line and Palmatoro wasn't dove on the back line. And this is just going to allow them to get the first gold mine of the match. So let's go on to the next clip here and see how they continue to utilize this Joule in the match. In this next fight, we're going to see, well, of course, we're going to see another fight breaking out in a second, but, oh well, I'm being redundant here. But let's see, the Ion Cannon is going to land on a Techno JJ. He's going to be healed up by the Lyra, and, who is that there? Team Secret's Baron is going to be getting it into an aggressive position. Now you might be saying like, wow, this is a great position for Team Secret. They have a lot of damage onto Fnatic, and if they were just to use jump jets right here, they would grab the kill. But that is not going to be the case. Look at Justman's Fountain. He just used it. He just used it and the Baron was at full health. He used the Fountain because their Leon, was on low health, and he was on the front line. So that is not a lot of value out of the Fountain, and look at Nettoilette, he's held his Fountain again. So all they have to do is survive and get back under the turret, and then they're in a great position going forward in the fight. However, if they lose a hero to a wayward crit from Baron, which they luckily won't, they will lose the fight. So what we're going to see here is Palmatoro hitting the one shot on a Leon, and they're going to go from here. Palmatoro, look how grouped up Team Secret is, and they're just perfect targets for Crystal Power Glimmer shots right now. So, what's going to happen here is Leon is going to get separated from the rest of his team, and Palmatoro is going to single him out and take him down. Once the comp is separated, the rest of Fnatic is free to go in. So he's just staying away from Leon, landing the good Glimmer shots onto him, and Leon is going to go down. Now that the comp is separated, that frees Techno JJ to go in, because the Baron has nobody to peel for him now because it's an Adagio. The Adagio cannot peel for his team, and it's an ace for Fnatic. I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't show you at least one clip where this Joule strat doesn't work. And that is going to be what this one is. So you see Techno JJ has jumped onto Baron, and the stun has been blocked. But look where he is in relation to Palmatoro and Nettoilette. He's too far away, and he has two team members of Team Secret between him and his team. This is just really bad for the Joule, because he's going to have to turn around, and he's going to take a crap load of Baron crits to the face, and he's going to go down. So this is a one fight for Team Secret, and they're actually going to be able to go onto the Kraken and stop it from destroying their whole base. It was because Techno JJ jumped in without his team, got his stun blocked. It was a great block by the Baron, and Team Secret was just able to clean up from there. Now, they're not going to actually get the other two kills, but killing the Joule basically destroys the whole comp that Fnatic is running. So, with that said, let's go into a review period and talk about everything that happened in this video, because it's getting pretty long. So, at the end of this video, I really want to compare and contrast the strats that Fnatic and TSM were using with the Joule. Now, first, let's compare. They were both using Joule, of course. They were both using Lyra. Now, why would you want to use Lyra with this Joule? So, why you would want to use Lyra with the Joule is because when the Joule jumps in, she needs immediate support. Now, say you wanted to play Arden, okay, but where is the healing? Fountain is not going to be sufficient enough for a Joule to survive on the front line alone. You could Vanguard the Joule, but that's just not going to be enough. Imperial Sigil is perfect for the job because it gives her a speed boost to keep going onto the targets she's going on, and it just gives her overall great healing, and Lyra can have a Fountain too, so that's a lot of healing. So, they both had Lyra, they both had Joule. We've talked about how the Lyra benefits the Joule, but now let's talk about the interesting part, the junglers. First, we're going to talk about TSM. Von C is an incredible jungler and an even better Koshka. So, he is obviously an absolute terror to anybody he faces in the jungle. him playing that Koshka in conjunction with Best Chuckane's Joule was a surefire way to get insane burst onto anybody that Best Chuck jumped on. Now, it really just comes down to player style, the way he contrasts with Palmatoro on the Kestrel. Now, of course, they were both playing Crystal, but there's just a huge difference between how the Koshka plays in conjunction with the Joule and how the Kestrel plays in conjunction with the Joule. When Von C was playing with Best Chuckane, you saw, like, you would see Best Chuckane jump in, and one of two things would happen. He would either stun the enemy that he was going on, and then Von C would jump in, get a huge burst of damage, and usually get a kill. And if he wouldn't get the kill, it would usually be on Old School. If he didn't get the kill, he would get an Atlas Pauldron off, which it basically just cripples Old School's attack speed on the Vox. So, but if he did not stun him, he would have knocked him away, creating separation between the team of Cloud9, and therefore crippling what their comp wanted to do, which was, of course, to keep the Vox near the Rhyme, root up to the Joule, and get free breaking point stacks. So the Koshka pick just created havoc in the lines of Cloud9, in conjunction with the Joule knocking people away, and it was just a discombobulated team is just a field day for a Koshka. And it didn't help that Old School only had one reflex block, and there were multiple Atlas Pauldrons and 2 great stuns on the side of TSM. So, now that we've talked about Cloud9 versus TSM, let's talk about Fnatic. Palmatoro played the Kestrel, Techno JJ played the Joule, and Net Toilette played the Lyra. So, inherently, there's a lot more pressure on Techno JJ to get the upfront damage down without dying. What this means is that Lyra is going to have to give him more healing, and Palmatoro is going to have to hold up his end of the bargain on the Kestrel. So, if the Koshka from Von C was not getting the damage done, there still would have been the scare factor of, wow, there's 2 melee heroes in our face. But if Palmatoro on the Kestrel isn't getting the damage done, you don't have that scare factor, and you've just got a dead Joule, and then your comp is crippled. So it's a little bit tougher to play what Palmatoro did in the sense of the Joule comp. And then again, though, he did it very well. He was great at getting glimmer shots onto multiple enemies, wasn't really missing his one-shots very often, and was able to separate the comp of Team Secret over and over to free up the Joule to have free reign over the Baron. Because when the Rhyme goes down on the other side, there's no peel for the Baron. They have an Adagio. What is an Adagio is going to do to stop a Joule? Not really anything. So, you've got the ranged jungler, and you've got the melee jungler. The ranged jungler is laying down poke to supplement the Joule's Rocket Leap stuns and other burst. And then you've got the melee jungler, the Koshka, piling on even more melee bursts than what the Joule is doing. Both of these comps work, but I think one of them is more suitable for your solo queue team, and that would be the Koshka, the melee jungler. It's a lot easier to land Pouncy Fun and Twirly Death than it is to consistently land Glimmer Shots on Crystal Kestrel. So, in all honesty, I would rather have the TSM comp than the Fnatic comp, but both of these worked. No one saw them coming, no one saw Joule rocket leaping back into the meta this weekend until it actually happened. I was so surprised to see Joule. I was like, are these teams like, they must be just experimenting, they must be joking. But they weren't. So, I hope you guys all learned a lot from this video. I know I did watching Vainglory 8 this weekend. I know I told you this video was going to be on Monday, but I got antsy and wanted to do it today. So, without further ado, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.